Hello and welcome. I am Diya Arora, and today I have with me online Mr. Shreevats Jaipuria, who is the Vice Chairman of Seth MR Jaipuria Schools and Jaipuria Institute of Management. Welcome, sir. And let me tell you all that under his leadership and guidance, the school has expanded from 1 to 31 schools in 6 to 7 years, and the institute is ever growing to become one of the leading business schools in the world. All right, so let's begin the talk on the revolutionary decision taken by the government for the betterment of education system, that is the National Education Policy, and let us know from the educator himself on how it is going to benefit the academic curriculum, taking into loop both private as well as government institutions.
So I think the NEP has far-reaching implications in the school sector for both private sector as well as government sector. We must realize that in India, almost 50% of students go to private schools. So if there is any policy implementation that takes place, which improves the overall quality of education, it is going to equally affect government and private schools. Now, I think the crux of the policy talks about increasing the gross enrollment ratio, which means the percentage of students that are going to school at every age group. Over the last 20 years, India has been able to achieve 100% enrollment at a primary level. But as we see that enrollment sort of drops off as we move from primary to middle school to secondary school, and secondary to senior secondary. There's a realization that drop-off doesn't work for us. We want students not only to start school, but to finish school, to finish grade 12. Presently, only close to, I think, 55% of students finish grade 12, whereas, 100% start class 1. So the focus of the policy is on in making sure that students up to class 12 students are going up to class 12 and actually finishing. Now, as I said, that 50% of students go to private school in India. But if you look at secondary level or senior secondary level, these numbers go up to 55% in secondary level and 65% in senior secondary level. So if we have to increase, the gross enrollment ratio to 100%, I think the majority of that heavy lifting has to be done by the private school sector, and that's why public schools and private schools need to work synergistically together to make sure that we reach this sort of broad target of universal secondary and senior secondary education in India. So I think that's the sort of big piece that is there on that is sort of the goal for the policy.
Okay, so on one hand, we talk about becoming equipped with technology and digital learning, and the pandemic has gifted us this time to become more technologically equipped, especially in the education sector. So on the other hand, students are missing out on performing arts and one-to-one interactive learning. So do you think that the education sector holds a better future in becoming digitally literate?
So I think, this pandemic has taught us a lot, that a lot can be done online. There can be continuity of education online, but it's about making the best of a bad situation. I think none of us are suggesting that post the pandemic, learning should be continue to be only online. And definitely there are certain advantages of physical school that are extremely important, whether it is children interacting with each other, whether it is doing certain activities that have a physical, where the physical mode is necessary. You talked about art and stuff. I think sports is very important, where, physically getting out, being with other students is extremely important. When it comes to music, dance, we are still trying to do certain activities online. Recently at Jaipuria, we had an inter-Jaipuria competition where 1,500 students participated across 31 schools, but they were recording videos at home and sort of uploading them in various categories of music, art, dance, and so on. So I think art and dance can also be shifted online to a certain degree. But there are various aspects of physical learning, of being with students, being with peers, of sport, of physical activity that definitely can't go online. So it's about making the best of a situation and trying to do the best we can under these circumstances while keeping our kids safe. And I think most schools across the country are doing very well. I would especially like to laud teachers who have gone, taken the extra mile in terms of reorienting themselves to this medium of education, putting their students ahead of their own families, working hard to deliver to their students.
Rightly said, because becoming equipped more technologically is important for the teachers as well, because they are the ones who are going to further teach the students how they can develop, they can evolve and develop in this sector. Also,
Absolutely. And I think that's happened in a big way. I think that's the advantage. That's the silver lining that we will take post the pandemic. The amount of learning of technology, students were always more comfortable with technology being younger, but the amount of technology learning that has taken place for teachers has been tremendous. And the crisis has forced us to do this. But I think this learning will be useful. Many times in the summer, at least in North India, schools shut down because of the heat, in the winter because of the cold, because of other reasons. And now we've learned really that in case these sort of extreme circumstances happen, schools are never going to be shut down out of schedule again. School buildings may be shut down, but online learning will continue. So I hope that the time we've lost on physical learning during this time period of the pandemic, at least on online learning, we'll be gaining some time, when other things such as extreme heat or extreme cold happen in the future.
so there's always learning in every situation that you are saying right now. Okay, so if we talk about the hot topic for debates, coming back to the NEP, is multilingualism. So how do you think that the lack of emphasis on conversing and instructing in English is going to affect the former stages of growth of students?
So I don't think that there is a lack of emphasis on conversing or speaking in English. Uh, let's start with what language should you teach in, and definitely there are advantages and disadvantages of taking either course. If you teach, there is a lot of studies to say that if you teach in your mother tongue, the understandability at a very young age is very high. Students who do not have English at homes are able to catch up. So that's the advantages of teaching in a mother tongue. There are certain advantages definitely of teaching in English as well. English is not only the global language of commerce, but it has become largely the language of commerce in the organized sector in India, and seen by students and parents rightly as a passport to getting into a good college and getting a good job. So I think the NEP in the wordings that it uses says that wherever possible, many times they use this word wherever possible. So eventually, I think it's not extremely prescriptive. What I take from the NEP is that they are pushing more languages to be taught at a younger age, which I am personally in favor of. The human brain is at a younger age more capable of grasping languages. But at least my interpretation of reading the NEP and the conversations I've had is that it's not a prescription that English education at primary level will go out of the window. Rather, they want to also promote learning and improve the quality of learning in the mother tongue. They talk about creating more textbooks in the mother tongue, about creating quality translations. So I think as long as it's not happening at the cost of English, and as long as a better option of mother tongue education is being given to students along with the English education, and they are being given the choice, there's no harm really in promoting the mother tongue, whether it's Hindi in North India or other regional languages in India. So I think we shouldn't, as long as it's not played up that you must teach this and not that, which I don't think it is in the NEP. It's about how can we create a high quality mother tongue experience which makes our students employable, economically able, and so on. So I'm in favor of that.
But during the debates, the other opinion came up was that when I was in my schools, I was punished for not speaking in English even while conversing with my friends. But but in this, but since English is not compulsory and there will be emphasis in instructing in mother language as well, students will not consider conversing in English as a compulsion. So don't you think that in the family we can learn our mother language, but it's the school which teaches us English, which is very important globally? But how would you counter that opinion if the people which keep?
So yes, I know we grew up in an age where English was sort of thrust upon us, and like there were these rules
Yeah.
in school that you can't teach in Hindi or other regional languages. So I don't think that's the right approach for teaching English either, right? Today, English is in demand because it is, as you said, economically empowering to get a job, and that will continue to be there. I so as again as I interpreted it, it's about creating a quality alternative as well. Today, when you look at regional languages schools, government schools, you don't see them as quality alternatives. So I don't think that the NEP is saying that English medium schools should be shut down or should all transcend to regional language mediums. So I think it's about creating two quality alternatives, and I think a lot of people will still choose an English education. I also think that even if you are choosing an English education, there's no harm in improving the way that our mother tongue is taught. I know for myself today that I'm more comfortable giving a formal talk or an interview like this in English uh, than in my own mother tongue, which is not ideal as well. So we must improve the experience. We talk about the NEP talks about a three language formula, whether the third language, whether it's with at least two Indian languages. So I think it's about teaching more languages and creating high quality choice for students. That's how I would do it. I don't think that it is possible to force anybody to learn in a certain language. Eventually, students and parents have to make that choice. But if the government can help make all the alternatives better, then why not?
All right, I get that. Okay, so the next question that we have for you is that during the pandemic, as you know, the education sector has totally come online. Also, there is another advantage of considering homeschooling as part of our new evolved education system. So, what extent is homeschooling going to benefit students, according to your opinion?
So I think even if students go to a formal school, the role of parents is extremely important. I am of the opinion that the best education we can give is through a combination of involvement of the school and involvement of the parent. If you take any one out of these two pieces out, you're going to seriously compromise the experience that a student would get. It's very important for students to interact with their peers. It's very important to go through a formal system with checks and balances. So to that extent, I feel that school is very important. At the same time, the student spends the most amount of time at home with their parents. If you talk about values in education, if you talk about some of those things, I think parents have a much larger role to play than probably even the school in inculcating those values to their children, as well as supporting the formal education that is going on in school. So I personally believe that the combination of schooling, of formal schooling, as well as the role of the parent at home, is the best possible mix that we should give to our children.
Okay. All right. So, since NEP has all the pros and cons, and according to you, the con which I stated, that was the multilingualism, is a correct decision for you. Introducing policies and appreciable framework and timely implementation of them is a Herculean task, and a completely different approach that we want to have towards education. So, how do you think that private institutions can help in achieving the aspirations of the government? Because we all know that majority of the population look up to private schooling than government schools.
It's so. I think there are a lot of policies that will take time to implement. I think there are a lot of good policies. If I can talk about a few here that would need to be implemented across the school spectrum, whether it's government or private schools. Already we talked about enrollment, which is at least at the secondary and senior secondary level going to be driven by private schools. I think a couple of things that I would like to talk about is one that, they're talking about, they say school-wide exam, but I think from the wording I understand that will be somehow external in nature at class 3, 5, and 8, other than 10 and 12. So I personally feel that, it might sound very cumbersome that why are we making kids at such a young age give an exam with the idea that we have in India that, board exams are so big and high pressure. But I personally feel that that is the biggest and most progressive idea in this entire policy, because we need to track at a macro level how our students are doing at a very young age. If our students are falling behind their learning curve in class 3, class 4, class 5, really it's a post-mortem if we catch it in class 10 in the board exams.
Okay.
As a private school manager, I know that, if I'm giving better learning outcomes in class 3, it's presently very difficult for me to show that to parents. So when parents are considering schools, they mostly look at only sort of infrastructure or class 10 or 12 results. I would argue that, if you're putting your your child in KG or class 1, class 10 or 12 results have less to do, and class 3 results have more to do with. So I think it's a great idea, but a lot of work needs to be done on how this will happen. It probably can't just mimic the boards. It's not practical for class 3 and 5 students to be going to different schools to give the examinations that class 10 and 12 students give. But I think that's the most path-breaking idea, that private schools will need to work along with government schools to make sure that we have some sort of quality assessment that is uniform, because that's what the boards do. They're uniform for everybody who gives them, and are respected at these lower levels. And I think that fundamentally it's going to benefit at least good quality private schools more, because they'll be able to show the kind of work that they are putting in their learning is actually going to help. The second big policy initiative that I really liked, which would affect both government and private schools, is that they're actually talking about debundling education departments at a state level. So presently, the same department runs government schools, makes policies, implements policies, and takes academic and curricular decisions. Now the government is saying that within a state government, the education department should be debundled. The people running government schools should be different from the people who are making policies, should be different from the ones that are sort of implementing and making sure policies implemented. And there should be a fourth bundle of the department that looks after curricular matters and so on. So I think, again, this is a very far-reaching implication, because it would make sure that the agency that is looking at private schools is looking at both private and public schools in a uniform manner. And there is not a government bureaucracy tilt towards believing that government schools are better or government schools are ours and private schools are theirs, which is currently there in the Indian government system, because the same people run government schools and regulate private schools. So I think it's a really big step for this policy to acknowledge that that problem is there and to look for this sort of debundling. And I eventually feel that this will help both sectors, both the government sector and the private sector.
All right. So also tell us about the government's decision on syllabus reduction in the academic curriculum. The topics that are removed are termed as political propaganda. And so share with us your opinion on, is it a great step or to reduce the burden of students, or is it just another political agenda?
So I don't know where it's coming that it's a political agenda, because at least in the NEP, I have no idea what topics are going to be removed. I think what the NEP says is that it's about going more in depth, giving more time for interaction. So it's a depth versus breadth issue. And I'm very much in favor of what they've done. Today, the being successful in the world has very little to do with information. You and me can go on Google and find any date, any time in history when what happened. It's about how we use that information, how we are able to converse with it, And in my interpretation of what is written in the NEP with regard to syllabus, it's about not only, it's about, going more into depth, making classrooms more interactive, and engaging with topic deeper, rather than covering a larger breadth of topics and just touching them. So I think that philosophy is has a solid educational foundation. That's what's important to succeed in the 21st century, and I'm 100% in favor of it.
All right. Also, I think there's a disturbance behind. That is, I was muting it. Okay. No, it's from my side. Yeah. All right. Okay, so thank you so much for your views on this. Also, if you talk about burden on students, do you think that introducing coding in class 6 is going to put any burden on the young minds that are still prospering?
So I think, it's not about burden. It's about, I think the earlier you learn things, the more naturally they come to you. When we talk about languages at a young age, when you talk about coding at a young age. So I think it's harder the later you do it rather than the earlier you do it.
True.
Of course, we need to build in choice. We need to build in, and make sure that the people who are teaching are capable of understanding not only the subject but also the pedagogy of how you should teach it to a particular age group. If we do those things right, I think the earlier you teach these subjects, these are subjects that might interest a student even more than some of the conventional subjects we've been teaching. So I think doing new things is the way to go. I think the world is changing, and we need to change with it, and we should not fear change so much.
Okay, so it's going to take time and maybe this all reap fruits in the future. Okay, thank you so much for your time, sir. It's been great talking to the educator himself who is into this field and who could know better NEP than you. So, thank you for your time, sir. It was great talking to you. So that was it with the educator himself. Don't forget to subscribe to Brainfeed magazine that provides latest information on all the education policies or pedagogical structures in the education sector. Keep watching Brainfeed interview series. Thank you so much. I, Diya Arora, signing off.